Now we're going to be talking about the scorpion. Like many things, it has a pool and a factory. The pool will never have anything beyond this. It's always going to be basic. The factory has a few other things. So first we have set active and set spawn rate. These are controllers for the wave manager to tweak with every wave. Setup just initializes itself. We have a receive alarm, which we will get into, and then create and recycle scorpion. Also, the scorpion factory is in charge of the scorpion sound, much like the centipede is. This is just so that if we have multiple scorpions on the scene, that the sound doesn't play multiple times. Again, these are just default values in case the designer doesn't set up anything, except for this. This can be changed, but we'll get into that. So first, let's look at the code for this. So we have setup, and we have time is a random spawn rate, and we call our game alarm. Well, what's a game alarm? It's a way for the various factories to have access to the alarm function and the update function of a game object without actually being a game object. So, as you can see on creation, we inform various areas about our existence, giving them pointers to this. Every update, we tell Score Manager and Sound Manager to do their thing, and then these are just various ways for the Spider, Scorpion, and Flea to have updates, so that they can regularly check, okay, it's time to spawn something. So in this case, we give it a random amount of time based on the spawn rate, and once that time is passed, the game alarm will tell the scorpion factory, okay, it's time to spawn a scorpion. So, once that function gets called, if we are active, so if the game designers have decided that the scorpion will be active this round, and we haven't already spawned one, which can be removed later, and then we created our lovely little scorpion. Before we get into the code, you might wonder what a scorpion manager is. Well, that's a remnant. That's basically a testing file. It doesn't do much. It just has the key pressed, and it's basically just a way for us to easily create scorpions for debug purposes. The spider and the flea will also have their respective quote-unquote managers, but they all also do something similar. They just create instances of those critters so that we can test them. In the final version of the game, it's also important to note, no instance of this is ever created. We have to manually put it into the level itself. So, don't worry, no matter how hard you press C in the final version of the game, you will not get a scorpion. So moving on to the scorpion. We have our regular game logic stuff, our speed, which can be tweaked by the designers as they see fit if they want it. Types. This was seen as Centipede. It has to do with the critter list, which we will get into. We have collision, update, draw, destroy. Very basic. Again, create the sprite, collision, sounds, initialize, we can have our position. And then the factory gives us a position, which is either 0 or the end of the screen. And then we have to flip our rotation, the orientation of the sprite accordingly, and then also move it so that we're not immediately popping on screen. Update, we just move across the screen, and if we're out of bounds, we die. Destroy and collision with the bullet, fairly simple. Poisoning the mushroom is handled within the mushroom, and just to remind, on collision with a scorpion, we just become poisoned, set frame to the poisoned one, and we manually have an internal track of whether we're poisoned or not. So that's the scorpion. And now let's move on to the flea. As I said earlier, Flea Manager is just a way for us to easily create fleas. Pool, simple, nothing special. Factory is very similar to Scorpion Factory. Set active, set spawn, which are both wave manager tweaks, receive alarm for the game alarm itself, and then we have setup, create flee, recycle, and check spawn. So, what does all this do? Setup, again, if we're active, we tell the timer to begin tracking the time up until we can spawn. And once time is up, it will call this check spawn. And then it does this check, and it checks, okay, let's create a flea or not. And if it creates a flea, then it says, okay, just, create a flea at the appropriate position, at a random column decided by the mushroom manager. So the flea itself, update, draw, destroy, collision, type, sounds and collision, sprite, yada yada, basic stuff. And then these are just the values for internally. So speed, health, cells per second. Again, setting up everything, setting up the position, resetting our health, and then one artifact that I did not have time to remove is this the flea's dependence on alarms. Flea was one of the earlier iterations of the critter, and it hasn't been updated to get rid of its dependence on alarms. So basically, it just sets an alarm to check every single grid, every second divided by cells per second, so every cell. And then every cell, if it has 2 health, it has a random chance to spawn a mushroom, and it resets the alarm. So the update, it moves down at its speed. If it's below the screen, it dies. Basic stuff. And then collision with bullet, we subtract 1 health and then check if we have 0 health and die if we do. If we don't have 0 health, then our speed gets increased. If we look up here at initialize, our speed is cells per second, which is 8 times cell height, which is 16. And that's, I can't do that math, but it's not 300. It's less than 300. And if the designers want to alter the speed, they can easily do so. So that was the Scorpion and the Flea.